For 53 years, William Chen kept his Purple Heart in a shoebox at the back of his closet. For 53 years, he told no one, not his wife, not his children, not his grandchildren, what he'd done in Vietnam to earn it. For 53 years, he carried the weight of November 14, 1968, alone. But 3 days before coming to The Tonight Show, his 12-year-old granddaughter found the medal. She didn't understand why Grandpa was crying when she asked about it. She didn't understand why he said, "Some heroes don't get to come home." And she definitely didn't understand why her grandmother insisted they bring the medal to Studio 6B when Morgan Freeman, the man whose voice had narrated every war documentary William had ever watched, would be there. "Maybe," William's wife said, "it's time someone finally heard your story." She was right, but nobody expected Morgan Freeman's voice, the voice that had narrated wars and history itself, to break completely when he heard it. Studio 6B was buzzing with anticipation that Wednesday evening. Morgan Freeman was the guest, there to promote his latest documentary about American military history. The audience was packed with fans eager to hear that legendary voice in person. What the producers didn't know was that row 8, seats 3, 4, and 5 held a family with a very specific reason for being there. William Chen, 87 years old, sat in his wheelchair between his wife Margaret, 84, and their granddaughter Lily, 12. In William's lap, wrapped carefully in a handkerchief, was a Purple Heart medal. His hands shook as he held it, from age, from Parkinson's, and from the fact that he hadn't held this medal in 53 years until 3 days ago. Margaret had made the decision. When Lily found the shoebox in the attic, when William broke down crying, when Lily asked, "Grandpa, why did you hide this?" Margaret knew it was time. She'd lived with William's silence for 56 years of marriage. She'd watched him wake up screaming from nightmares he never explained. When she heard Morgan Freeman would be on The Tonight Show, she called. She explained to a producer named Robert, a Marine veteran himself, and somehow they arranged these seats. The show opened with Jimmy's energetic monologue. When he introduced Morgan Freeman, the applause was thunderous. Freeman walked out in a perfectly tailored gray suit, his presence commanding yet gentle, that famous face breaking into a warm smile as he shook Jimmy's hand and settled into the guest chair. "Morgan Freeman," Jimmy said with genuine enthusiasm. "It's always an honor to have you here. That voice, I swear, you could read the phone book and people would cry." Morgan laughed, that rich, warm laugh. "I've never understood that fascination with my voice. It's just how I talk." "Just how you talk?" Jimmy repeated incredulously. "Morgan, you've narrated the universe. You've narrated God. You've narrated penguins walking across Antarctica. Your voice is literally how people understand the world." "Well," Morgan said thoughtfully, "I've been fortunate to tell important stories. This new documentary is about something I care deeply about, honoring the men and women who served in Vietnam. That war, that generation of soldiers, they came home to a country that didn't know how to thank them. Many of them carried their stories in silence for decades. This documentary tries to give voice to those stories." In row 8, William Chen's hands tightened around the Purple Heart. Margaret glanced at him, saw tears forming in his eyes, and gently squeezed his shoulder. Jimmy nodded seriously. "That's so important. My own uncle served in Vietnam. He never really talked about it either. There's something about that war specifically." "Shame," Morgan interrupted quietly. "They were made to feel shame about serving their country. They were spit on, called baby killers, told they were monsters. So they stopped talking. They buried their medals and their memories and their trauma, and they carried it alone. For decades. Some of them are still carrying it." The studio was quiet, the usual late-night energy replaced by something heavier, more reverent. "In this documentary," Morgan continued, "we interviewed veterans in their 70s and 80s, men who are finally willing to talk about what they experienced. And the common theme, across every single interview, was this sense of, it's too late now. I should have spoken sooner. My family doesn't know me. I've been a stranger in my own home for 50 years. Morgan's voice caught slightly. That broke my heart. The idea that these heroes felt they had to hide, that they thought their stories would burden the people who loved them. That's when Lily Chen, 12 years old, raised her hand. Jimmy noticed first. "Oh, we have a question from the audience?" He smiled at the young girl. "Go ahead, sweetheart." Lily stood up, nervous but determined. Her voice shook. "Mr. Freeman, my grandpa is sitting right here. He served in Vietnam. He has a Purple Heart, but I didn't know until 3 days ago because he kept it hidden in a shoebox for my entire life, for my mom's entire life, for 53 years. The cameras immediately found William Chen in his wheelchair, tears streaming down his face, the Purple Heart visible in his trembling hands. Morgan Freeman's expression changed instantly. He stood up from his chair without asking, walked off the stage, and moved directly into the audience. Jimmy followed immediately. When Morgan reached row 8, he knelt down, this 87-year-old legendary actor kneeling in front of an 87-year-old veteran, and looked directly into William's eyes. "Sir," Morgan said, his famous voice now soft, intimate, "what's your name?" "William," the old man whispered. "William Chen." "William," Morgan repeated, as if tasting the name, giving it weight. "May I see your medal?" William's hands shook so badly he couldn't unwrap the handkerchief. Margaret gently helped him, revealing the Purple Heart, the sai, distinctive purple and white ribbon, the gold border, George Washington's profile in the center. Morgan took the medal with both hands, holding it with profound reverence. November 14th, 1968, he read the engraving on the back. "William, that's the date you earned this?" William nodded, unable to speak. "Can you tell me what happened that day?" Morgan asked gently. William shook his head. "I can't. I can't." "You don't have to," Morgan assured him. "But William, I want you to know something. This medal isn't just metal. This represents an act of extraordinary courage. You were wounded in service to your country. You bled for people you didn't know, in a place most Americans couldn't find on a map, because someone told you it mattered. You were 19 years old, a child, and you did something that most adults couldn't do." William was sobbing now. "But the others, the ones who didn't come home, they're the heroes, not me. I got to live. Tommy didn't. He was my best friend, and he didn't." His voice broke completely. The studio was dead silent. 240 people watching an 87-year-old man finally speak about the friend he lost 56 years ago. Morgan's eyes filled with tears. When he spoke, his voice, that legendary, unbreakable voice, cracked. "Tommy would want you to live, William. He would want you to tell your story. He would want your granddaughter to know her grandfather is a hero." "Some heroes don't get to come home," William whispered, the same words Lily had heard 3 days ago. "Tommy was supposed to come home. We had plans. We were going to open a restaurant together. He was going to be my best man at my wedding. He was..." William couldn't continue. Morgan placed his hand over William's, both of them holding the Purple Heart together. "Tell me about Tommy." And William Chen did something he hadn't done in 53 years. He talked. "Tommy Rodriguez, from Texas. He could make anyone laugh even when we were in hell. November 14th, we were on patrol. Our squad got ambushed. Tommy was 10 feet ahead of me when the shooting started. He went down immediately. I ran to him, pulled him behind a tree. He was hit bad, so bad, but he was still conscious, and he was looking at me, and he said..." William's voice broke again. He said, "Get them out, Chen. Don't waste time on me. Get them out." Margaret was crying, hearing this story for the first time after 56 years of marriage. "There were 11 other men pinned down," William continued. "Tommy told me to leave him, told me to save the others. So I did. I got them out. All 11. But by the time I got back to Tommy, he couldn't finish. He was gone," Morgan said softly. William nodded. "They gave me the Purple Heart for my wounds, and a Bronze Star for the rescue. But they should have gone to Tommy. He's the one who made the call. He's the one who sacrificed. I just did what he told me to do." Morgan shook his head. "William, you saved 11 men. 11 fathers, brothers, sons who got to come home because of you. Because you listened to your friend's last words and you honored them. Tommy gave you an order and you followed it. That's not guilt. That's duty. That's honor. Jimmy Fallon was openly weeping, making no attempt to hide it. The camera operators, the audience, the crew, everyone was crying. "For 53 years, Morgan said, his voice thick with emotion, you've been carrying Tommy's sacrifice alone. You've been honoring him with silence. But William, I think Tommy would want something else. I think he'd want his story told. I think he'd want his best friend to stop punishing himself. I think he'd want Lily to know about the brave man named Tommy Rodriguez, who loved his friend enough to make sure that friend would live." William looked at his granddaughter, who was crying but smiling. "You think so?" "I know so," Morgan said firmly. "Heroes don't hide, William, and you're a hero. So was Tommy. It's time everyone knew that." Morgan stood up and addressed the entire studio. "This medal represents one day, November 14th, 1968, but it also represents 53 years of carrying an impossible weight. William Chen saved 11 lives that day, but he spent 5 decades thinking he wasn't worthy of being saved. That ends tonight." He turned back to William. "With your permission, I want to tell Tommy's story. In the documentary, I want people to know about Tommy Rodriguez from Texas, who told his best friend to save the others. I want people to know about William Chen, who honored that final order and spent the rest of his life wondering if he'd made the right choice." "You did, William. You absolutely did." William was crying too hard to speak, but he nodded. Morgan looked at Lily. "And you, young lady, you did something incredibly brave. You asked your grandfather about his medal. You didn't let him hide anymore. Sometimes the next generation has to give the previous generation permission to heal. You did that. You should be very proud." Lily smiled through tears and hugged her grandfather from the side. Jimmy finally found his voice. "Morgan, I don't even know what to say. That's beautiful." "It's overdue," Morgan corrected gently. "We've let our Vietnam veterans carry their pain in silence for too long. William shouldn't have had to wait 53 years to tell someone about Tommy. Margaret shouldn't have had to sleep next to a husband fighting invisible wars every night. Their children shouldn't have grown up with a father they couldn't fully know. And Lily almost grew up never knowing her grandfather was a hero." He looked directly at the camera. "If you're a Vietnam veteran watching this, or if you love someone who served in Vietnam, please hear me. It's not too late to tell your story. It's not too late to put down the weight you've been carrying. Your stories matter. Your sacrifices matter. Tommy Rodriguez mattered. William Chen matters. You matter." The studio erupted in applause, but it was different from normal applause. It was reverent, punctuated by sniffles and tears. Jimmy wiped his eyes. "We're going to take a break because I literally cannot host right now, but when we come back, I want to talk about resources for veterans, for families dealing with PTSD, and how we can honor the people who served." During the commercial break, Morgan stayed with William. He pulled up a chair and just sat there, holding the old man's hand, asking gentle questions about Tommy, about Vietnam, about the 53 years of silence. A camera operator, quietly, respectfully, kept filming. Later, that footage would become part of Morgan's documentary. When the show came back, Morgan and Jimmy had a different kind of conversation. "Morgan," Jimmy said, "your voice has narrated history, but tonight, you witnessed someone making history. William finally telling his story after 53 years, that was historic." "It was sacred," Morgan corrected. "There's a difference between entertainment and bearing witness. Tonight was the latter. William trusted me, trusted all of us, with the most painful part of his life. That's a gift. That's a responsibility." "What do you want people to take away from this?" Jimmy asked. Morgan thought for a moment. "I want people to understand that silence isn't strength. For 53 years, William thought he was being strong by not talking about Tommy, by not burdening his family with his pain. But strength is vulnerability. Strength is letting people see you break. Strength is telling your granddaughter the truth, even when it hurts." He paused. "And I want people to check on their veterans, really check on them. Ask the hard questions. Create space for the stories they've been holding. Because William isn't unique. There are thousands, tens of thousands, of veterans from Vietnam, from Iraq, from Afghanistan, from every war, who are carrying similar weights, who think their pain is theirs alone, who think no one wants to hear what they've seen. We have to tell them they're wrong. The segment went viral within hours. Tommy Rodriguez trended worldwide. The Department of Defense located Tommy's surviving family, a sister in Houston who cried when she learned her brother's sacrifice had finally been acknowledged. Morgan Freeman personally arranged for her to meet William Chen. 3 weeks later, they met in Houston. Two families, connected by loss and heroism, finally able to grieve together. William Chen gave his first interview to a military history foundation. He talked about Tommy, about November 14, 1968, about the 11 men he saved, and the 53 years he spent thinking it wasn't enough. Lily Chen wrote an essay titled "My Grandfather, My Hero." In it, she wrote, "I found a medal in a shoebox. I found out my grandpa saved 12 people, 11 men in Vietnam, and himself on The Tonight Show." Morgan Freeman included William and Tommy's story in his documentary. The episode won an Emmy. More importantly, it sparked a national conversation about Vietnam veterans and the cost of silence. Studio 6B now has a plaque at row 8, seat 4, in honor of William Chen, Tommy Rodriguez, and all veterans who carried their stories in silence. May they find the courage to speak. Some stories are told with voices that never break. Morgan Freeman had spent his career being that voice, steady, reliable, eternal. But that night, he learned something more important than narration. He learned that sometimes the most powerful thing a voice can do is break. Because breaking shows it's real. Breaking shows it matters. Breaking gives other people permission to break too. William Chen kept his Purple Heart in a shoebox for 53 years. Now he wears it every day. And when people ask about it, he tells them about Tommy Rodriguez from Texas, the real hero, the one who didn't get to come home but made sure his best friend did. That's not survivor's guilt. That's love. That's what heroes do. They carry each other home even across 53 years of silence.